The test begins. Commander Lyra Thorne stood at the observation deck of Nexus 7, her violet eyes fixed on the human section of the massive trade station. Her silver skin caught the artificial light as she watched the strange bipedal creatures move through their daily routines. 6 months had passed since the Interstellar Coalition had welcomed humanity into their ranks, and 6 months since she had been assigned to work alongside their representative. Captain Marcus Chun was unlike any species she had encountered in her 40 years of military service, where other races sought to prove their worth through displays of strength or cunning. The human simply did his job with quiet efficiency. He negotiated trade agreements with patience, resolved conflicts with wisdom, and somehow managed to earn respect from even the most hostile alien delegates. This bothered Lyra more than she cared to admit. The Altarians had built their reputation on being the galaxy's finest warriors and strategists. They understood power, dominance, and the art of manipulation. But Marcus seemed immune to all conventional approaches to influence. "Commander, you sent for me?" The melodic voice belonged to Agent Zara Voss, who had just entered the observation deck, where Lyra was built for command with her broad shoulders and battle-scarred silver skin. Zara was crafted for a different kind of warfare. Her genetics had been enhanced for 3 generations, creating a being of devastating beauty. Her emerald skin seemed to glow with inner light. Her golden eyes could captivate any sentient being, and her pheromones were designed to make even the strongest minds bend to her will. "I have a mission for you," Lyra said without turning around. "The human." Zara moved to stand beside her commander, studying the human section below. "Captain Chun, he's been difficult to read." "Exactly. I need to know if he can be trusted. If he has weaknesses we can exploit. If his loyalty to the Coalition is genuine, or if it's all an act." Lyra finally turned to face her agent. "I want you to seduce him. Break down his defenses. Find out what makes him tick." Zara's lips curved in a confident smile. "Commander, I've never failed in such a mission. Humans are still a young species. Their emotional controls should be primitive compared to ours. See that you don't underestimate him," Lyra warned. "There's something different about this one. Something I can't quite identify." 3 hours later, Zara made her move. She had chosen her approach carefully, wearing a form-fitting outfit that accentuated her enhanced curves while maintaining an air of casual elegance. The recreation center was nearly empty during the evening shift, with only a few off-duty personnel scattered around the various entertainment areas. Marcus sat alone at a corner table, reading from a physical book while nursing what appeared to be some kind of human beverage. Zara approached with fluid grace, allowing her natural pheromones to precede her. "Captain Chen," she said, her voice carrying the perfect blend of curiosity and invitation. "I don't believe we've been formally introduced." Marcus looked up from his book, and for a moment, Zara expected to see the familiar glaze of attraction cloud his features. Instead, his brown eyes remained clear and alert, though they held genuine interest. "Agent Voss, isn't it? From the Intelligence Division." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Please join me. I've been hoping to learn more about Altarian culture." Zara slipped into the seat, allowing their knees to brush as she settled. The contact should have sent a jolt of desire through him, but Marcus simply continued to regard her with polite attention. "You know my name and position." "I'm impressed," she said, leaning forward slightly. "I make it a point to know the key personnel." "On the station," Marcus replied, closing his book but keeping one finger between the pages. "Especially those with your reputation for ... excellence." There was no innuendo in his tone, no suggestive undertone. He seemed genuinely interested in her professional capabilities. Zara found herself momentarily off balance. "What are you reading?" she asked, nodding toward the book. Marcus smiled, and the expression transformed his entire face. "Poetry. Ancient Earth literature. This particular collection is from a culture that believed words could bridge any gap between different peoples." "Poetry?" Zara had expected military manuals or technical specifications. Is that common among your species? More common than you might think. Humans have always used art, music, and literature to express things that simple facts can't convey. He paused, studying her face. Would you like to hear a piece? It's about understanding between strangers. Before Zara could respond, Marcus began to recite in a voice soft but clear. Though we come from different worlds, with different skin and different dreams, the heart that beats within us all speaks the same eternal themes. The words seemed to resonate in the air between them. Zara felt something unexpected flutter in her chest, not the calculated attraction she was used to inspiring, but something warmer and more genuine. That's beautiful, she said, and meant it. Did you write it? Marcus chuckled. One wish. I could claim such talent. It was written by a human poet named Elena Vasquez about 300 years ago. She lived during a time when different human cultures were learning to work together. Her words helped bridge those gaps. You memorized poetry about cooperation, Zara said slowly. That's not what I expected from a military officer. What did you expect? Marcus asked, his eyes twinkling with amusement. Zara realized she was staring at him with open curiosity rather than calculated seduction. She quickly adjusted her approach, letting her pheromones increase slightly. I thought you might be more aggressive, competitive. Most military leaders I've met wanted to prove their dominance. Dominance is overrated, Marcus said simply. I found that understanding people works better than trying to control them. As if to prove his point, Marcus signaled the server and ordered 2 glasses of a popular Altarian beverage. I hope you don't mind. I've been wanting to try this, but I thought it would be more enjoyable with someone who could tell me about its cultural significance. Zara blinked in surprise. Most beings who were attracted to her focused entirely on her appearance or tried to impress her with their own accomplishments. Marcus was genuinely interested in learning about her world. It's called Bala wine, she explained as their drinks arrived. It's made from a fruit that only grows in the crystal caves of our homeworld. The brewing process takes 3 years, and each batch is slightly different depending on the mineral content of the cave where the fruit was grown. Marcus tasted the wine carefully, his expression thoughtful. It's complex. I can taste the minerals. You mentioned, but there's also something floral underneath. You have a good palate, Zara said, impressed despite herself. Most off-worlders can't detect the subtle flavors. I spent time as a child helping my grandmother in her garden, Marcus explained. She taught me to pay attention to the small details that others might miss. She said that understanding the nuances of one thing helps you understand the nuances of everything else. They talked for another hour, and Zara found herself sharing things she had never told anyone. Marcus listened with complete attention, asking thoughtful questions and offering insights that showed he genuinely cared about her. Perspective. When she mentioned her frustration with being seen only as a weapon rather than a person, Marcus nodded with understanding. I imagine that's difficult, he said. Being valued only for one aspect of who you are, even if it's something you're exceptionally good at. Yes, Zara said, surprised by how much relief she felt at being understood. Most people see my enhancements and assume that's all I am. Enhancement can be a burden as much as a gift, Marcus observed. The question is whether you let it define you or whether you define yourself despite it. As they prepared to leave, Marcus stood and offered her his arm in a gesture that was courteous rather than possessive. Would you like to continue this conversation sometime? I'd enjoy learning more about Altarian philosophy and culture. Zara took his arm, noting how he maintained a respectful distance while still being attentive. I would like that very much. As they walked toward the exit, Zara caught sight of a familiar figure in the shadows near the entrance. Commander Lyra stood watching them, her expression unreadable, but her posture tense. The mission was supposed to be simple: seduce the human, discover his weaknesses, and report back. But as Zara looked at Marcus's earnest face and remembered the warmth in his voice when he spoke about understanding between different peoples, she realized this assignment was going to be far more complicated than she had anticipated. For the first time in her life, Agent Zara Voss was genuinely interested in someone who seemed more interested in her mind than her body. and that terrified her more than any enemy she had ever faced. Back in her quarters later that night, Zara stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her enhanced features looked back at her, perfect and calculated. But she kept thinking about the way Marcus had looked at her, not with lust or desire, but with genuine curiosity and respect. She had been created to be irresistible, but Marcus seemed to see past her enhancements to something deeper, something she wasn't sure she even knew existed. Tomorrow, she would have to continue the mission. But tonight, for the first time in her life, Zara Voss wondered what it would be like to be seen as more than just a beautiful weapon. Asterisk. The test had begun, but already it was clear that the human was not going to be the one who failed it. Asterisk hearts and revelations. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of conversations that Zara had never expected to have. Marcus kept his promise too. Continue their discussions about culture and philosophy. But their meetings had evolved into something far beyond what either of them had initially planned. They met in the station's observation lounge, where the vast windows showed the swirling colors of the nearby nebula. Marcus had brought another book of poetry, and Zara found herself looking forward to hearing him read. There was something soothing about his voice, something that made her feel calm in a way she had never experienced before. This one is about resilience, Marcus said, opening to a marked page. It was written by a human who survived a terrible war and chose to focus on healing rather than revenge. As he read, Zara watched his face. There was pain there, she realized. Old wounds that had healed but left scars. When he finished, she found herself asking a question that had nothing to do with her mission. You've experienced loss, she said quietly. I can hear it in your voice when you read these pieces about suffering and recovery. Marcus closed the book slowly, his fingers tracing the worn cover. My home colony was attacked when I was 25. Pirates looking for rare minerals. My parents, my sister, my fiancé, they didn't make it to the evacuation ships. Zara felt something twist in her chest. The pain in his voice was real, raw, despite the years that had passed. I'm sorry. That must have been devastating. It was, for a long time, I wanted nothing. But revenge? I joined the military thinking I would hunt down the people responsible and make them pay. Marcus looked out at the nebula, its colors reflecting in his eyes. But revenge doesn't bring back the people you love. It just creates more pain. So what changed? Zara asked, leaning forward despite herself. I met an old woman on a refugee station. She had lost her entire family to the same group of pirates. But instead of seeking vengeance, she was teaching orphan children how to read. When I asked her why, she said something I'll never forget. Marcus turned to look at Zara directly. She said, the darkness took everything from me, but I won't let it take who I choose to be. Zara stared at him, her enhanced mind struggling to process this concept. In Altarian culture, vengeance was not just expected but required. The idea of choosing forgiveness over retribution was almost incomprehensible. You chose to help people instead of hurt the ones who wronged you, she said slowly. I chose to become someone my family would be proud of, Marcus corrected gently. I figured the best way to honor their memory was to make sure other families didn't have to go through what we did. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the nebula shift and dance. Zara found herself thinking about her own life, her own choices. She had been created for a specific purpose, trained from birth to use her beauty and enhanced abilities to serve the Altarian military. She had never questioned whether there might be other paths available to her. What about you? Marcus asked. What drives you? What makes you proud to be who you are? The question caught Zara off guard. No one had ever asked her what she wanted, what made her proud. They assumed they knew based on her genetics and training. Double quotes she started, then stopped. I'm good at what I do. I've never failed a mission. That's what you do, not who you are, Marcus said with a gentle smile. What brings you joy? What would you choose to do if you could do anything? Zara opened her mouth to give a standard response about serving her people, but the words wouldn't come. The truth was, she didn't know. She had never been asked to consider. Her own desires separate from her function. I don't know, she admitted, the honesty feeling strange on her tongue. I have never thought about it that way. Marcus nodded understanding. It took me years to figure out who I wanted to be after I lost everything. Maybe that's something we could explore together. Over the following days, Marcus introduced Zara to aspects of human culture she had never encountered. He showed her human art that depicted not just beauty, but raw emotion. He played music that told stories of triumph and loss, love and heartbreak. He shared foods that had cultural significance beyond mere nutrition, but it was the small gestures that affected Zara most deeply. Marcus remembered that she preferred her drinks slightly warmer than most beings. He noticed when she was tired and suggested they end their meetings early. He listened to her opinions with genuine interest and often asked follow-up questions. That showed he had been thinking about their previous conversations. For the first time in her life, Zara felt seen as a complete person rather than just a collection of enhanced attributes. The breaking point came during their third week of meetings. They were in Marcus's quarters, where he had been showing her his collection of books and artifacts from various human cultures. Zara was examining a small sculpture when Marcus spoke from across the room. I know why you're here, Zara. She froze, the sculpture still in her hands. What do you mean? Marcus turned to face her, his expression sad but not angry. I know, Commander. Thorn sent you to seduce me, to find my weaknesses and test my loyalty to the Coalition. Zara felt the blood drain from her face. Her enhanced reflexes kicked in, calculating exit routes and potential weapons, but Marcus made no aggressive moves. He simply watched her with those patient brown eyes. How long have you known? She asked quietly. Since the first night we met. Your approach was textbook perfect, but there were small tells. The way you positioned yourself, the timing of your pheromone releases, the calculated nature of your initial questions. Marcus stepped closer, but his posture remained non-threatening. What I didn't expect was for you to drop the axe so quickly. I understand. Zara set down the sculpture carefully, her hands shaking slightly. You stopped trying to seduce me after our second meeting, Marcus explained. You started asking genuine questions, sharing real thoughts, showing actual curiosity about human culture. You became yourself instead of what you thought I wanted to see. Tears began to form in Zara's golden eyes. I've ruined everything. My mission, my career, my purpose. Have you? Marcus asked gently. Or have you discovered something more important? Before Zara could respond, the door to Marcus's quarters chimed. Commander Lear's voice came through the intercom, cold and authoritative. Captain Chun, Agent Voss, you will both report to Conference Room 7 immediately. They walked to the conference room in silence, Zara's mind racing. She had failed her mission completely, and worse, she had compromised herself emotionally. Commander Thorne would likely reassign her, possibly even demote her for unprofessional conduct. Lyra was waiting for them, her violet eyes hard with displeasure. Agent Voss, report on your mission status. Zara straightened to attention, falling back on years of military training. Commander, I have failed to complete the assigned objective. Explain. Captain Chun proved resistant to standard seduction protocols. I was unable to compromise his loyalty or discover exploitable weaknesses. The words felt like ash in her mouth. Lyra's gaze shifted to Marcus. And you, Captain? What is your assessment of this situation? Marcus stepped forward slightly, not quite positioning himself between Zara and her commander, but close. Commander Thorne, I believe your agent discovered something more valuable than my weaknesses, which is the strength that comes from genuine connection rather than manipulation, Marcus said calmly. Agent Voss approached me as an adversary, but chose to know me as a person. In doing so, she demonstrated the very qualities that make the Coalition strong, the ability to bridge differences through understanding rather than exploitation. Lyra's expression didn't change, but Zara caught a flicker of something in her eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or curiosity. You knew of her mission from the beginning. Lyra stated, yes, but I also saw her potential to be more than just a weapon. Agent Voss has a brilliant tactical mind, deep cultural knowledge, and natural empathy that she's never been allowed to develop. Those qualities could make her an exceptional diplomat rather than just an exceptional spy. Zara stared at Marcus in shock. He was advocating for her, trying to save her career by redefining her value to the service. Is this true, Agent? Lyra asked. Do you believe you could serve effectively in a diplomatic capacity? For a moment, Zara hesitated. This was her chance to return to familiar ground to explain away her failure and request reassignment to standard operations. But as she looked at Marcus, remembering their conversations about choice and becoming who you want to be, she found her answer. Commander, I believe I would like the opportunity to try. Captain Chun has shown me perspectives I never considered before. I think I could help other species understand each other the way he helped me understand myself. Lyra was quiet for a long moment, studying both of them. Finally, she spoke. Agent Voss, you are hereby reassigned to the diplomatic corps as a cultural liaison specialist. You will work directly with Captain Chun on coalition integration projects. She turned to Marcus. Captain, I assume you have no objections to this. Arrangement? None whatsoever, Commander. I believe Agent Voss will be a valuable addition to the diplomatic team. As they prepared to leave, Lyra called Zara back. Agent, a word. Marcus squeezed Zara's hand briefly before leaving them alone. When the door closed, Lyra's stern expression softened slightly. Do you love him? She asked directly. Zara felt heat rise in her cheeks. Commander, It's not a disciplinary question. I'm asking because I need to understand what happened here. Zara took a deep breath. Yes, I believe I do. But more than that, he helped me discover that I could be more than what I was designed to be. He saw potential in me that I didn't know existed. Lyra nodded slowly. The mission wasn't a complete failure then. We learned something important about human nature. What's that, Commander? They don't just resist manipulation, Lyra said thoughtfully. They transform it into something constructive. Captain Chun could have exposed you immediately, could have used your mission against us. Instead, he chose to help you become a better version of yourself. Lyra moved to the window, looking out at the bustling station where dozens of species work together despite their differences. Perhaps that's the real strength we should be learning from humanity, she continued. Not their technology or their tactics, but their ability to inspire others to transcend their limitations. She turned back to Zara with something that might have been approval in her violet eyes. Agent Voss, I suspect your new assignment will be far more challenging than your old one. Diplomacy requires you to be genuinely yourself rather than whoever you think others want you to be. Are you prepared for that challenge? Zara thought about Marcus's words about choice, about becoming someone her family would be proud of. She thought about the sculpture in his quarters, the poetry about bridging gaps between different peoples, the way he had looked at her with respect rather than desire. Yes, Commander. I'm ready to find out who I really am. As Zara left the conference room, she found Marcus waiting for her in the corridor. His smile was warm and genuine, full of pride and affection. So, he said, offering her his arm in that courteous way she had come to love. Ready for your first assignment as a diplomatic liaison? What did you have in mind? She asked, taking his arm. There's a trade dispute between the Centaurians and the vegan merchants that needs mediating. I thought we could work on it together, consider it practice for your new career. As they walked toward the diplomatic offices, Zara realized that her mission had indeed been successful, just not in the way anyone had expected. She had been sent to discover a human's weaknesses, and instead had discovered her own strengths. Behind them, Commander Lyra watched from the conference room window. For the first time in months, she was smiling. Perhaps there was something to be learned from the human approach to relationships after all. The test was over, and everyone had passed in ways they never could have imagined. Asterisk.